Maybe there's chocolate here. There's chocolate. Where did they all go? Right. Did. But then you didn't question it. You just you knew that we need everybody else to. That's all good. What do you want a better read? So you guys find the chocolate?
Oh, well. You need order and what do we need to do to get started? All right, well, here we go. 2024 budget.
Over, I'm all the way over here because the boards aren't long enough, so I kind of just did it. As you can see in the memo, we are in a good position right now. Revenues are up for sales tax, a little bit for ambulance, and with that timing difference with the airport runway, we have a lot of additional revenue that wasn't budgeted, so it adds to that big reserve that we have. Expenses are kind of always similar. We have always some sort of vacancies, but right now there's only 3, so that's good. And only recently 3. We did have 1 for a moment there. And then basically our revenue neutral rate, which is the 48.822 mils, we can keep that. I mean, this budget shows us keeping that. We could also have raised it to the 52.211 and taken the float if it was necessary with a hearing, but in this I'm proposing that we don't do that, as we'll get the same tax dollars and it looks like that would be all we need, but that is a point of discussion. I increased the equipment reserve transfers only slightly by $15,000. The detail is in there later. The transfer to the capital improvement fund is the same at $450,000. The allocation to the other entities, I left the same in here, but the resource center requested $5,000 more and OCCK requested $18,341 more. So that's another discussion point. Cloud Corp is the same at $58,000. Step increases, which is longevity pay, is about $14,700, and that's worked into all of the departments within the departmental pages. The COLA amount, I don't have anything worked into the budget. I just left it as one chunk on the state budget form so that we could discuss it and it'd be a lot easier to maneuver and know what we're talking about, but it's 6% the chunk is put in right now, as that's based on CPI. So the CPI for last year was 8%, we already moved 2% to the year before. To this current year to help with the COLA this year, that would leave 6% left over. So that's the reason that I put it in there. But also as a discussion point. To also discuss is the wage study and the possible wage increase of 93,000 and some dollars. That we will discuss separately. I also put a chunk in for this year to demolish 830 West 11th, which is still a discussion item on the next agenda, but it does show that we have the ability to do that and still end well. Then there's a 2% increase in health insurance. It's $13,815 if it's taken completely by the city. So that is how I put it in the budget. I worked it into the departments. And there's a sheet that talks more about that later that we can discuss if that's what we want to do. And the general fund reserve, basically, it ends well, and we have the line where I put a chunk at the end as a reserve is higher than it was the year before. So that's positive. And then I did make a note at the end of the water and sewer utility fund. As you'll be able to see on one of the schedules, it looks like we might be time to discuss a rate increase at some point. We haven't done that since 2016. And we have added to the wastewater treatment plant, but that only goes to the plant, nothing to do with daily operations. So with all of the summary, and then you can kind of see the next page of the discussion points. I think we kind of just talked about hit on all of those. So where shall we start? I know I do this every year, but do we want to look at individual line items in the budget in the white text, or do we want to? Did you have any questions about any of the individual line items?
I did. Your department 410 general admin. I just don't remember what this is. It's on 770 other miscellaneous expense at $460,950. Sorry, guys, I don't have a page number. It's your third page into white.
Basically, that was the reserve dollar amount chunk that was put in last year on this current year budget. And then the 466,646 is the amount for the 2024 budget. And it's not to be, that's just the guaranteed the guaranteed reserve, which will be well above that, but that's not allocated towards any expenses. So bottom line, if we spent every single thing and only got the revenue budgeted, that's what would be left.
It's that 460.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is higher than last year, right? And higher than basically I've ever put there before.
But we were at zero the previous years.
Well, then every year, so I'm just showing the budget there, but the estimate is actually zero because I'm not going to spend anything out of it.
Okay, gotcha.
So the pocket that you put the general reserve in is that, that line in the.
So that should match what it said on the state budget form as the mill or as the reserve line.
Okay. Name of it for me on.
We know, does the county mills, that affects our budget, correct? So if they go up or down? Or no, nothing at all. Okay.
Did hear they're going up. That doesn't affect.
You know, 2 or 2.5 last I heard.
What did you say?
Last I heard, Connie was looking at a 2 or 2.5 million increase. You know why? Operational expense increases. Nothing more specific than that.
Any other questions on the lines there?
On the animal shelter, the project, does that come out of that specific? Like the upgrades? there is any.
Yeah, there's that separate.
There is a fund for the animal shelter, separately, but I don't even have it here because of the tax budget that, has.
35.
The balance, but it has a good amount of money. So
Is it all through private donation then? Is that why it's separate?
So that would be what was used or is used for any upgrades or updates.
I think you are planning some.
That's correct.
upgrading it. It's been put off for doing. We have the money to do this. Being back to the water fund pages within there or.
Yeah, want to up to water fund right now, or do you want to say that we normally go through general fund in totality first and then come back to water and sewer. Is that what you want to do today?
Just really excited to be here.
March me off.
I think most of my thoughts or questions are more like, say, philosophically based, I mean, theory based, more than line items. So however we go about answering those questions. 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
So I'm going to go back to the points of discussion and start there and then see if there's anything else that comes up.
If we start with COLA. Or not, that's the first one, I mean, mill levy is the first one, but really that's gonna be determined by everything else. You said.
Right, so
now.
with the mill levy, we could go to 52 to 11. Without changing it, that's where we are now, right?
No, we're at the 48,
We're, okay,
and that's what's in this budget, is leaving it, is dropping the mill, that's the revenue neutral rate, so to get the same amount of tax dollars, the mill goes down, because the valuation.
and that's what we're trying to shoot for, to maintain that revenue neutral rate to avoid that.
Yeah, then there's no hearing, and there's no public problem.
If we don't need the additional tax dollars, then we can avoid the publication of a notice to the county clerk's office. We can
Right.
avoid that extra hearing, but if we needed it, then that would be the first place to start with saying, come take that float, go. But we're proposing here not to take the float, to reduce it,
Right.
and just collect the same amount.
Because as we used to do before the new law, was always take it, always keep the mill levy the same, but then
Right.
always get extra dollars.
Right,
So we haven't done that for a few years now, so.
right, okay.
I appreciate that we are remaining revenue neutral, and we have for how long since it started? I don't think we've had a hearing, right, in the city? We have not. Okay, I think that's kind of what that was intended for, and if we can keep moving that direction, that's great. What's helping us stay there is the increase in sales tax. Sure. We are thankful to have that sales leg.
And staying within our budget.
Yes. Strong management, justice.
The food sales tax change, is that gonna change the sales tax revenue for next year that significantly?
Not,
What is it?
not for us, not for next year. So the only component that came out of that was the state sales tax. The local sales tax
Is
for
the-
food is still intact. If that comes up again, this next legislative session, that might be in question, and then that could greatly impact us.
Where we start, move to COLA, or, I mean, look at individual scheduling before that, I mean.
What tax is that, Kimber? Orange, it looks like.
It's range. It's the very first one in there, it's all over there, so it's just talk about. It's the very first,
Health insurance.
orange tab for pulled out paper.
I guess my concern here is I wonder why we didn't look for more options for health insurance, considering there's a very real possibility of going out of network. And is there a reason why we didn't get options like we did last year?
We still can right now. She couldn't go out until we got the renewal. Nobody
is
will
that?
quote us, I don't know. I guess they have to see an amount to beat. And so we didn't get the renewal till the 10th.
That seems like that would go against any type of competition, that they would show them what Blue Cross did. I mean, that doesn't seem quite realistic, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
I'm
Give
thinking
me my
like more for the timing of it, with how long. I don't know, we're very early to try to get any numbers for what people ask for, I guess, according to.
We still could. I think they could get it to us before the budget is due to be published. I know we did it last year, and that's not to say it wouldn't be that way this year, but it wasn't. I didn't have anything favorable except that one company that didn't have good. Didn't get good feedback from the people I talked to. I think it was United over here. But I definitely can still tell her to.
And really, the
No.
decision wouldn't have to be done before budget, but as long as it wasn't going to increase a whole
Yeah.
lot, 2%. If we had decided to change, we would just say we're not gonna change it. It would be
Many-
more than that.
Many of the companies want to renew, go January to December. Trying to remember, but I think when we did this last year, we were going to have to do like a partial year and then one full year. Because the way it is now, we go October to September. So
That's an odd time frame.
what's that?
It's an odd time frame for a
Yeah.
budget.
I can't remember if we did that with the state or how that started, but we kind of like it because as far as with the broker and everything, you know, they're rushed with everybody doing that, getting renewals in December, and we're kind of one of their few groups that do it around in August, you know, 1st of September. I think we get a little bit, maybe more, better treatment, you know, more hands-on, they have more time for us then. And
It seems like though we've been getting pushed into a corner every year as commissioners. I don't feel like we've been getting information very timely enough to do like research on, like real actual research, not anecdotal,
right.
you know.
And so, yeah, and I've talked to Alicia several times and we can't get anything from Blue Cross before the 1st to 2nd week of July.
Right.
Because they're basing everything, I think they end in June, what they base our next year's rates on.
Is that gonna be kind of like for any of them? Any other providers?
Well, that's,
They're all
that's
used
what
to
I'm
doing for a year end,
right.
so that's why it's not until now that we can get
It could be,
based on our usage and everything to a certain point. They're used to doing it for January.
Sure.
renewal. So I mean, so now I think is the time, only time that you can do it. Anyway.
yeah, I can go ahead and see what she can, she kind of already had started the process, so. And they had done this last year, these companies had done it last year, so they have a lot of our information, the history and everything.
So we have a broker, right?
So the real risk that we're talking about is that if Blue Cross does push us then into being out of network, what does that impact to our employees? What is the cost associated with a potential different insurer? What are the coverages from that different insurer? How do we budget for those unknowns? Right, and then do we try to allocate just budget? If insurance company C is 30% more than what we're getting from Blue Cross, is that 30% more negate whatever out of network costs would be incurred? And how to try to anticipate for that. I know right now it's an accepted insurance in a lot of different places, and people like being insured by them because they are accepted. If that changes with some of the things that are going on, how does that affect our employees, that it would become a less favorable. I mean, I know I go back to this a lot, but at Pawnee, we went to a different provider for a year until our CEO was involved in an auto accident, and her son was the beneficiary of that insurance that was not as beneficial, and went back pretty quickly after that. But how do you anticipate that? How do we budget for that?
I got a call last week from, I don't know what it stands for, Employees Against High Insurance Costs. I don't know what, but it's the same company when we went self-insured in 2008. And I told her, I said, we still have enough people here that remember that time. And employees were very unhappy. And she said, well, a lot of things have changed. You know, people would go for x-rays and then they'd get a bill when they were used to things being free, you know, it was part of their deductible, certain things were covered 100%. And a lot of things weren't covered that we were used to. So, I mean, there's also things like that, but
I think that they lost some considerable market share this year, just with folks looking at other options, so there might be some nice competitive options, and we were able to compare competitive options last year. So it may just be a wise thing for us to do, to look at that if this is looming. So our employees don't want them to end up without coverage.
Right.
And I think a lot of them, even, well, in my experience, you know, like I've had United and you get a bill at all from it. So, yeah, depends on what your level of coverage is, but I ended up taking an ambulance ride and ER visit last year in California. So
yeah.
you never know, California.
Well, that definitely is a lot better now. It used to be Blue Cross was really your only option here.
Yeah.
If you wanted, you know, decent coverage, but that's changed. I can tell her to do that.
So then from a budgeting perspective, if the most expensive option here is 620,000, does it make sense then to look at some sort of cap, 675, 700? That would at least let us move forward with some sort of, I mean, I don't know what that does to other budgets. I mean, I know that all comes from a different place, but does that give us the ability to have some sort of idea to move forward from a budgeting perspective as we figure out the details with what to do insurance wise as that plays out, so that we're not locked in one way or another? How much wiggle room do you think, if insurance is going to cost $700,000, does that change our conversation about how to budget for that? I don't know where that threshold is.
So the purpose of this budget study session is to set the max expenditures for next year. So I think that there would be some value to you guys saying, how much are you willing to spend on the employer side for insurance? We can go back and look at other options to make sure that we're getting the best option for our value and for our employees, come back and visit with you about that, and then see where we're at within this. And then anything that would be any cost of premiums that would be above and beyond that, then would have to be absorbed by the employees if that's what you set as your cap. So we could take a look and see what information you had and bring that back to you. Amber, remind me of the drop dead date that we have to have our budget published and ready to go.
It would be published by after
The August 3rd meeting.
the public hearing would be on the second meeting, so I usually would publish it by Friday. Because you have 10 days before the public hearing, if we want it on the radio.
Do we have room to move that, or we don't have room to move that?
We're gonna have a special meeting. Just because it has to be to the county clerk by, I think it's August 25th, and it has to have 10 days after the public hearing.
So for budgeting purposes, it'd be helpful to have a cap tonight, and then we could still bring back health insurance information to you
So do we,
later, but
what would a reasonable cap be then, 650? And then we have to have that conversation with employees if it's above 650 as to what some of the reasoning why there may be a necessity in absorbing a greater cost. Is that? I mean, that's just a shot in the dark, but does that sound
Yeah.
reasonable? For numbers reasons.
The highest option on here is 619, 686, right? And this is with Blue Cross, but your concern was the out of network.
because we don't yet know how, if we stayed with Blue Cross and our local hospital system went out of network, we don't yet know what the impact to the employees would be at that point in time. So we don't know if their co-pays would go up. We don't know if they would cover life. For different routine things than what they do now. We don't know what that would be.
I think 650 is reasonable. Okay.
And the next. One, cost of living adjustment. That just shows the 6% total increase to be 189,945, including wages and benefits. And then it's split out between the general fund and utility fund. So the 154,974 is what was on the state budget form that I just plugged in there. So on the next page, and I only gave two, it could be anywhere, whatever you decide, but I did a 6 and a 4, and the 4 for the general fund is 103,316. So a $50,000 difference between those two, and if, like I said, the 6% is what's in the budget. So if you change to anything lower than whatever we take away, would just be going towards reserve.
What did we do last year?
We did the CPI up 7%. I don't think that we've ever deviated from it since we decided that's what we're doing. Well, that's what one of the spreadsheets.
Yeah, the last page of that shows what we did.
Last page in the orange tab shows on the right side that the COLA that we actually use, and so it's always been with CPI, but we've never had a CPI that high.
You want a little bit of comparison, what went across the list or for the rest of the cities across the state, because everybody was, not every city uses this, it's just the formula that we decided to use a few years back. A lot of them are doing somewhere between 3% and 5%, some combination of merit and COLA. So some places will do up to 3% merit. Ours is a one-step increase, only that's all you're eligible for. That's approximately 1%. And so any fluctuation happens with our COLA. Other places, they might do anywhere from a 2 to a 5% COLA, just a 1% merit. But it just depends on where you're at and how they're structured. So for comparison purposes, that's what others are doing. There were several that also gave wage bumps mid-year last year, and that just upped their base wages too, in addition to COLAs. And so we have not looked at that in 3 years. So those are things to consider as well.
But we did wage increases last year.
Yeah, we did. So we did. That was like two years ago. It became effective in January 2021 is when that became effective, or February 2021 is when that became effective. So we looked at that in 2020.
It's 6%, but it's a pretty good rate for other cities,
So that
other than the fire department.
So that gets us over to the wage study discussion, and as you saw in that I emailed last week, every department except for dispatch and fire EMS was at or above average. And so that is a snapshot point in time. That does not consider what other communities are doing for COLAs or what we're doing for COLAs. So really just a snapshot in time where we're at right now.
What the state did this year was 2.5% for folks who were at or above wage, and then 5% for those who weren't, which was their first increase in. Guess I'll kick it off, and probably not popular, but this is really hefty, considering if you look across the board on where all industries are, you're looking at typically a 3% increase. You know, so it's really hefty. And, you know, absorption of the insurance, I know it's only 2%, but that's helpful too.
In the budget, we're able to do the 6% for COLA and the 2% for insurance, I mean, right?
That's what,
That max. And I think we need to look at the bigger picture too, being 2% for health insurance paid, 6% COLA, but turnover less maybe. To go and train somebody, send somebody EMS or LEOs, I mean, that's pricey. And then I don't know what staff training needs, but if we can keep our staff and not have to retrain all the time. And that doesn't include HR or anybody else in-house time.
If you looked at the last time we did that wage study, we did some research on training costs and new hires. We settled on an average of about $3,500 for the training of a new employee. With the exception, I think, of the LEOs, because that would be that $3,500 in-house, and then you add academy onto that, which was worth about $10,000. And then I think we have a similar cost for going to paramedic, but you typically don't hire paramedics right in, so that's just a stepping on job training. So.
Yeah, it's just that increase, that one, you know, 100,000 plus increase, that's not just a one-time thing, that stays forever. And if we do that every year, I mean, if we add it, we're able to add $150,000 to our CIP, I mean, imagine how much, or our project list, how much that would be. So I want to make sure that I know we're getting kind of back to the corner with water and sewer. We're going to get that way with everything. So if we're trying to stay revenue neutral, so maybe just I don't know. Is there room for an understanding of sticking at that 4% and not that 6%? You know, is there, that's still, you're beating most places in terms of increase in pay.
Right, so I think that with that balance, trying to not find ourselves in a spot where we're gonna have to take a larger increase later on down the road to catch up, how do we stay competitive without, while still being able to have money? So we need to have employees to do the projects, but we need money to do projects to have employees. So where's that Goldilocks zone of making sure that we're putting enough money towards the projects that we have and the needs that we have, but still being able to attract and retain quality employees to staff to complete those projects. So do we look at something similar to what the state did then, where the folks that are at or above those averages, we have, you know, and then we allocate budget towards getting the departments that are under where they need to be. Would that make more sense to distribute the budget toward, we're maybe not doing as much of an increase, CPI increase for those folks that are maybe at or above where they would be otherwise, and then making sure we have money towards getting those folks on board or up to par where they need to be.
We're carrying over quite a bit to reserve this year, correct?
we have been the last 3 years. I know that's, I mean, we've had good years for several reasons. But yeah, this is the most we've ever carried forward the last 2 years. That was blue, have the first one. 1,700,000 we have. So since 2018, we carried over $1 million technically, if you look at the notes for each year. And then in 2022, technically it was 1.7 million. Which the recommendation would be probably at least 900,000. So we are, yes, definitely doing well for. It's nice doing a budget when that's.
I understand where Ashley's coming from. I just think that if we're gonna keep our good employees, I understand the 6% is there forever, but. We gotta keep our good employees, if that means giving them 6%. It's how many, how many we lost this year, just to surrounding counties, because they have a little bit more, their benefits are a little bit more.
But are those employees mostly in the fire department, police department, or which is, we know is under the average, so those departments need to come up to where they need it.
We lost utilities there too. Can't remember if Public Works we lost there or not. We lost 8 this year.
But we're not at a net loss. I mean, so we only have 3 vacancies,
3 vacancies right now. Yes.
so we've lost 8, but how many have we hired on? That'd be 5.
It's been more than that, because we have more vacancies than 3. I haven't done the math in that direction.
But I guess what I'm saying is that we're attractive enough that we're not hemorrhaging employees.
Right.
Right, and we've been able to, so I think that there's something that we can do that would address the cost of inflation, that would help improve, would add a positive to our employees without maybe doing the full 6.
Yeah.
That would allow us then maybe to allocate more money towards those departments that are not up to where they need to be. I would rather allocate funds towards fire EMS, police dispatch, right, to get them up to where we need them to be, while still doing a decent increase for all other employees, that would help. I don't want to do nothing, because then in 2 years, we're gonna have to make a large jump, but if we do 6, then, I mean, that seems to me to be a decent compromise across the board, where we're respecting our current employees, but getting those that are under budget or under average, because I don't think that we have under average staff. I think that we have at least average, if not above average staff. So getting all of our staff there is a goal of mine. I think a goal of ours. But
We mentioned hemorrhaging employees, not this year. We look back at 2021, we're at 43% turnover out of our 57 full-time employees, and then we're at 22% last year. So 8 this year puts us right at about below that 10-12% so far this year. So 10-12% is where we want to be. We don't really want to be any higher than that. Also,
And the majority reason is pay deficits. I mean, I know
that's if you look at the average over about the last 7 to 8 years, that's the majority of the reason, yeah.
But not recently, because we've been raising salaries.
There were a couple that I'm aware of from this year that did leave for more money elsewhere, so.
But that's
a
gonna
couple
happen
maybe.
in any business. You're gonna lose people. Part of the thing not only is pay, you have to somehow get employees to buy into your organization, so they feel like it's theirs. I don't know how you do this day and age.
It's very difficult when the world is pushing people toward remote work and
Mhm.
comfortable jobs, and none of the work that we do here
It's
is promotable. And it requires hard work. Our staff works very, very hard, but that's probably a discussion for another time.
In fact, today's my 17th anniversary But I looked this morning, there's 11 people ahead of me, been here longer.
Oh, wow.
I was really kind of surprised. Great. This is pretty good.
It's awesome.
So
I also think we
how long have you been here, Jeremy?
What's that? I also think we've only.
26.
That's five.
Okay, not
In your
not
wage.
8. Alright, I'm wrong.
Years 30.
Who?
Very straight.
Oh, Gary, yeah.
Well, you gotta be here for at least another 15 years, Stacy.
Yep.
Not gonna happen.
Yep, that's what you got it.
As God is my witness.
Well, I would like to see what we can do if we went with 4% overall, and then the rest of that money into those departments that are not up to the average, whatever. I think you've got the money in the budget already for it, so it's a matter of where we allocate.
And I guess I would be just a little different. In addition, maybe to that, would just like to see a 4% across the board and then that additional 2% only for those, because my concern is just that total amount
Yeah,
that is perpetual. You know, growing our expenses.
How do you avoid that?
You don't, but yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of opportunity in these years through COVID to kind of lean into that, and then you get to a spot where things level. I mean, and then I just never want to be in a position where we have to eliminate staff
Sure.
because wages are, you know, because we not too far out.
Right, and I think that's where's that balance point between staying up, not getting too far ahead to where we're not able to, we have to let go of staff, but I don't know that CPI has ever been negative, and I know that there's some historical precedent for that, but then do we pay staff less because CPI has gone down?
I don't think we ever have, and it has been negative, hasn't it?
Not since we started doing our plan. I mean, I think. 2001.3 was the lowest when we did that, probably the year.
Looks like 2008, wasn't it? I guess in December it was 21, but it looks like 2009 it was negative almost the whole way across. 2015 is negative at this time.
And when that happens, it usually means that there's such stuff going on nationally that's affecting the whole economy, that there are some challenges. That's one of the benefits of the CPI, is it kind of has that pulse. So your suggestion then would be to do 4% across the board?
With an additional 2% for those folks that are under.
How close does that get us? Does that get us where we need to be then, or closer where we need to be?
We'll have to run the numbers and see that.
It looks like it would be like $43,000 less than what you're. I mean, just because this is about 15,000 between the two numbers.
So it would be a compromise, but it would get us closer. So do you guys want to go with one?
Can we look at it for next time? Is there enough time between now and then? Didn't just have some time to think about it too.
You know, Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so. And maybe then with that, then here's 4% across the board. Here's 2% for those departments, those areas that are below average. Compared to here's 4% across the board, and what it would take to bring those departments up to average, and see
Yeah.
what the differentiation is between those two. And
Sure.
if it's attainable, it'd be good to get them there sooner.
yeah,
If it's not, then
you'll retain them better,
we're working towards
Yeah.
that.
and they're expensive. Train.
Yes.
Mhm.
So run those numbers, bring that back to you Wednesday. and see what that looks like then.
So looking at the insurance, that the city covers employees at 100%. And then what do they cover for spouse, children, family? Do they pay the entire amount or the percentages that are listed on percentage?
That current one on the left side is the, how much employees pay and how much the city pays. And so, yeah, the city covers 77% basically of employee spouse, employee child, and 70% of pay.
But that's just the increase of what they,
That's what it is currently.
so my,
And then it will change the percentages accordingly, so it'd be 78, 78, 71. If it, that's the city taking that 2%.
but the reason that the city, like, so the city covers the family at 70% because that's the percentage that it would be. How do we come up with those percentages? I thought it was that the city basically pays all for the employee and then anything above that employee cost is covered by the family or the individual. Is that wrong?
I mean, it just at one time, we just decided a flat amount rather than a percentage, but it just works out.
Yeah, it wasn't set by a percentage at the time that it was set.
Right.
That's just how it works out going forward now. It's always kind of been hanging around those or.
So in my simple mind, the way that I'd always thought about it is if to insure my family was $1,000, but if I were just to be covered as an individual on my own, it was $600, then I would be responsible for paying the $400 in excess of that. That's not,
No, because the family plan is almost $2,000, right at 2,000. So they would have to pay $1,200 a month. No. More than that.
but they would,
No.
I guess what I'm saying, that the employee is responsible for anything above what their individual plan would be. No,
They're not, they're saying, oh, yeah, so like right now,
That's not what we.
we've covered more than that.
yeah, between 70 and 75% of a family.
I think a family
So
is.
no,
I have 70, I think an employee pays something like $570 a month. For a family plan.
Yeah. And it would be
that's about 20,
1,500.
so that's about 25% of their monthly amount, right?
30%.
30%. Oh, sure, yeah. Okay, 70%, yeah.
Which is remarkable. That doesn't always translate well on a paycheck, but it's,
And those are some reasons too, touching back on the wage study, that we have lost a couple of employees. So comparison to Republic County, they're covering 100% employee, family, spouse. Cloud County is covering 85% across the board of each plan.
The county is 85%.
So like where we cover 100% of our employee plan, they only cover 85% of the single plan, but they also cover 85% of employee, spouse, and 85% of family.
they're also going to be going for a mill increase.
Right.
Also, you know, the library covers 100%. But no say.
You know that every
Okay.
year.
Just looking for your placings.
Just not what I would say, but okay.
The library covers 100% and we pay the libraries.
And they just, yeah, yeah, whatever budget they give us, they just take it off. Goodness sake. Okay, so. I guess it was outside entity requests, we want to get that one. Next. I was in the front. Before the red tab, I think I have a spreadsheet that says what we do currently. And that's what I have in the budget right now is what we are doing this year. So the discussion would be, do you keep them all the same, or do we raise what people want, are we cutting anything, or? So.
I'm inclined to increase the resource center request.
Yeah, that one. I would agree, I think. They do a lot, they're doing even more now.
That increases to get her to full-time pay.
Well,
full-time.
yeah, she works full-time, I think, most of the time, anyway, but
I'm inclined also to agree with that.
I think I also appreciate, my perception is that she's pretty creative, pretty resourceful with the resources that she does have. I appreciate that stewardship.
Already working full-time hours, being paid for a full-time job. And that-
Yeah,
It's necessary.
do we know, like, and I probably should spend some time figuring out, like, what is the entity that says that that's organization exists and what type of funding is supposed to be dedicated to that and from where? We never kind of learned that she didn't, I don't think she knew that when she was here. I don't know, we didn't get any of that. It's just that it's, I mean, we're doing a nice lift, but you know, what's the county doing and what is the state supposed to be doing and are those increases absorbed across those entities?
She's requesting the same amount from the county.
Yeah.
Doing right now.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that. They were doing that.
They should have funds available.
They should. I'm inclined to not do it, but that's.
So she was requesting that the county increase to 25, or is that what they were doing? Or she was requesting?
Requesting the same amount that she's requesting from the city, an additional 5,000.
Yeah.
So your question was, are they able to apply for grants? Are they
Yeah, or who is,
doing that? Who's
yeah,
responsible?
she applies for grants.
yeah,
I can tell you that.
but the state has a lot of requirements on who they
Yeah.
can and cannot give food out to, so one would think that maybe the state is supposed to be providing the funding for that organization to exist. No,
I'm not sure.
Do you want us to try to do a little bit more research? between
No,
Wednesday?
no, you'll go down a rabbit hole. You might not get out of.
I think Nancy probably tell us how that's. Or Ron Coffey. Ron's on their board.
Oh, yes.
Be as simple as looking at the bylaws. I'm not a fan of bylaws, I'm not a fan of details in general. They're important for people that like details, but yeah, would there be something? Should be a way to find out.
Yeah.
I think with that question lingering, though, that's a fair thing and it should be easily resolved then by the family meeting. I mean, if you can. So that would be
All
nice
right.
to know even for future requests
Yeah.
for our knowledge, so.
What are your formal sources of funding, right? I mean, not the grants, not.
Right.
Yeah.
What are your,
Guarantees.
I'm not sure there are any
and there may not be,
other than the county and the city.
I mean, just for instance, like economic development has to be funded by the county. That's in state statute, but not the city. I'm not
Yeah.
wanting to open up that can of worms. I'm just saying that there is a very clear statute that defines where that's supposed to be housed at.
right, and like the alcohol tax. Right, there's a specific destination for that gas tax, right? I mean, like that goes specifically, or hospitality tax goes
Yeah.
specifically towards these funds.
Yeah.
Is
So
there some
where's
sort of,
theirs?
right,
I definitely question the OCC.
I know that we were operating those buses at a loss before OCCK came over and made things better, but
I'm a no.
You're what?
I'm a no.
That, it's significant, and the thing, I guess, that jumped out to me at the presentation was that a lot of the transport is for medical, but it's because people don't want to utilize the phone number and call and do that is the reason why it's not being documented and they're not receiving those monies. So, I mean, I know it's less, it's more of a burden for the person instead of just calling them. They have to call the 1-800 number and go through the prompts, but once, I mean, if that's taught and it's required, then that, I mean, that's, wasn't that 25% or higher? I can't remember. It was a significant percentage that's for medical.
It was the people, like the writers that actually had to do that, like
Yeah.
OCCK can't call. Go, so
Right,
it's
but you
like
can
a-
schedule your, I mean, when you're with your case manager, you can call and schedule all your rides for the next 2 weeks or the next month that you need. Like, and they can assist that, like, they have case managers that can, even though they have to call themselves, their case managers can assist with those things, and I think that that's within the, I would suggest, and I could be wrong, but that's within the realm of their job to do. I mean, and it is, again, it's just an extra thing, an extra burden, but that money is available in that way if they're documented like that.
yeah, I think it's easier for everyone involved just to get budget requests from the city, except for the city, the taxpayers, right? But that travel, so if you have a medical card, all that travel is reimbursable, whether you drive yourself or that transportation is provided, and it's all able to be planned out ahead of time. You call, say I have a doctor's appointment with Dr. Hutchinson Tuesday at 1, and that transportation is coordinated and reimbursed and paid for. It's just easier for me to call OCCK and say I want to go up to the hospital and have them come up and pick me up. It's a convenience, but it's not convenient.
Much like we're working on nuisance signs, personal responsibility, I think that could be applied in this case.
I absolutely value OCCK and what they do. I just think that's a significant increase, where the money could be sought through, like, for example, the medical.
Yeah, and the insurance companies have the funds. There are very few insurance companies that I'm aware of that are operating at a loss. Or have an obligation to try to maintain tax neutrality.
Do we want to keep the budget allocation at the 5,000 that we funded in 2023?
I'd be in favor of that.
Is that what we've always done? They just increase. They increase.
They just
We did.
started asking last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, for 60,000.
Yeah.
Yes, senior center. Not like it upgraded their donations and things, the things that they operated out in the senior center budget primarily.
Okay, so they didn't want to ask the city for this.
They came in at one point in time and started asking for some help, and then we directed them to other resources based on ridership and what your role analysis on at that point in time. Then when OCCK took over, they came in and they added a paid dispatcher, so you're working on volunteers, and then they increased wages for drivers by $4 an hour as well.
Two drivers here.
I don't know, I remember 2 or 3.
I guess that was Salina.
Where's the dispatch on?
Not Salina.
They call the Salina OCCK Transportation Office to schedule rides here in Concordia.
So there was only 2 or 3 things provided.
Right, I think. And prior to them taking it over, it was a volunteer dispatcher that worked out at the senior center that took the calls. Then he called the senior center to schedule rides.
Which means it's taking a while to get people to realize probably what they need to do. the schedule things right.
The other entities all ask for if they're same amounts, so are you guys okay with those?
Yeah.
Those as is.
Of course, since they don't have groundskeepers and we're doing volunteers, do we need to decrease it?
That's separate budget that comes out of the general fund. It's one of those budgeted ones. This payment is strictly for the economic development services and the small business classes that they offer.
We are looking into the resource center, so is that,
There you go.
we're looking into
Yes.
the money of resource.
See if we can-
Marcia jumped on that one. Thanks, Marcia.
Oh, okay, I thought it was Amy, I just knew it was. Okay. CIP then? So that is yellow tag.
The library was on that, was there? They didn't really increase, they did.
Well, since they're their own spot in the budget, they did increase,
But we haven't got there yet. That was-
well, no, we don't usually ever discuss it. We don't have it to say over it, so it's,
They have their own bill. They have a dedicated bill.
yeah. And so to see their change, I mean, you can look at the page 17 of the state budget form, like the red tab, and it's the very last page. And that would show the library and then levy. With that operating down based on estimate, so.
Do they use our insurance plan or do they go through like the state library insurance plan?
They don't use ours.
Okay.
but They are, yeah.
When she was cutting some stuff, quite a bit of stuff, and the increase was for an extra full-time person to do this program,
There's a part-time, there's full-time.
right?
Thank you.
CIP. Yellow. So the first column shows what's available for all the projects that we've already approved and discussed at some point. And then the middle, the budget 2024 column, you can see some of those projects. That again, I mean, you can move these however you want, but this is Amy, me, and department heads kind of discussing and adding 50,000 for demolition, and then 25,000 for foul ball protection at sports complex. We added 50,000 to do the press box, in addition to the 25,000 that's already there. So in all of those, that's just gonna add to it. So exterior improvements at City Hall, that'd be a total of 25,000. Because we haven't got to that, so the plan would be to get to these next year. Interior improvements at City Hall, carpet. Interior improvements at PD.
That's finishing out the carpet there, so we did a little bit of the dispatch center, and then if you took a tour and coming down the hallway, the rest of it's the same that's here within our walls here, about 30-35 years old, smashed down completely and really gross. Since we were doing well financially, we felt it was time to go ahead and finish up these projects and put us in good shape for the next 30 years.
On the
And then
sports complex, is the college or high school helping with any of those? They usually do, but
On which,
any of those,
The press
I mean, the
box.
press box would be the only one on
Okay,
that side,
the foul ball is the little
on the
kids.
Pee Wee side.
And that's when we've gotten some complaints for a couple of years from patrons there, and then we had. I think one of the hits you said was not at ours, I know my mom took one to the head, so.
We got one available.
You got one available, yeah. So there was a lot of them flying back and forth across this year, so it'd be really nice to get something in place so we don't have any major injuries.
Would that go across both the fields, like just a net across the whole top of that middle section, or how would you do that?
We've talked about a couple different ones, so when all the complex, especially Jared's going to, he's getting a real feel of what the others been doing, and it's taller netting.
Mhm.
Kind of like what's on the big field.
Yeah.
So it goes all the way to the dugouts for one, and then being up that high, and then covering the top, basically from the two dugouts that are back to back, cleared towards the concession stand building and that patio area. And in between the restrooms and concession stand building,
That would be good.
it's a lot of engineered big poles, like cables. Stretch netting, and the way ours is, it has to be customized netting. Specialized company doing it.
We'll also provide shade.
That's part of it. The netting one obviously quite shade, but the
Right.
shade
There
options are,
are options for all. And the press box, is that just at the older fields or where is it?
it would be the press box, between the four big fields, yeah. But in order to do press box there, I have to move Jared shop out to a separate location. Or else he would have nowhere for all that machinery and stuff like that, so. That's where the new shop building comes into play. Yeah, the college is wanting to build their own locker room, which is 100% theirs. And their funding, they're paying for everything from sewer to building and everything else. So that would eliminate basically the top half the size of the press box over the big field. So then there's really none here for that big building that's in the way and not enough bathroom spaces and.
So if you talk about bringing that down,
Basically reposition it, because it's not centered really on any field anymore. And then kind of reposition a little bit there. My ideal would be one level bathrooms, concession stand, umpire room, and then a patio on top of it, and then a small press box overlooking the Dorian field centered over it. And then obviously the top would be covered too, for shelter and shade. Kind of like a elevated platform.
Just over Dorian?
It'd be over all four, you had lookouts on all four fields, but the actual press box, because Dorian's the only one using actual press box on.
Currently, but it gives you the ability in the future to use all four spots.
Well, it wouldn't be enclosed, it would be a smaller enclosure on top. Overlooking Dorian. So then everything else would be a crow's nest.
so the only official press box, it would be over Doyen, but there'd be visibility.
Yeah, there'd be elevated visibility on all four fields. My head was going with it.
That was great. 7th Street parking lot entry and City Hall exterior concrete. Been on there for a while, we're going to get that accomplished. All breaking up out there in those places. The roof replacement is underway.
That should be done here.
Yeah.
They're still saying 2 weeks, still waiting on the last of the edge metal to come in, and as soon as it comes in, I've got about 1 or 2 days before, and then that project is done.
2 weeks.
Then we added Brown Grand Tuck 14. All those projects there are planning or either in progress or planned to still happen this year. The housing subdivision, $187,028, that's just kind of where that dollar amount kind of fluctuates, and it's, whatever we have left. Kind of get stuck in there to make the bottom dollar zero, but also just to add to that, so that we have whatever funding we need when the time comes. That's all. Then we added 50,000 for downtown trees. This is something will eventually need to be done there.
The trees are large enough now that in a couple intersections, they are blocking the stoplights and it makes it very difficult to see. We did get an estimate just for the tree replacement that was much less than this, but talking with Jeremy, who was heavily involved in the first initial installation of those almost 10 years ago, that there'll be planters that need to be dug up. There might be some concrete impact, electrical and water lines down there. So we just want to make sure we have enough budget in there to handle and plan for that stuff.
And convince people it's a good idea,
Right.
because it's gonna be a.
Who paid for, I thought Lions helped. Did they help pay for trees or was that two
an
times ago?
individual.
They what?
And the individuals.
Okay, so we didn't actually have to pay for the trees last time?
I don't think we did.
Okay.
So similar to other grants, I guess, once we do something the first time, then we inherit the maintenance and perpetuity unless we.
But have we asked them if they wanted to do that project again?
That's not something I wasn't aware that they had done it.
Yeah.
So,
Because
I'm
they
not-
may, I mean, that's what their thing is, they plant trees, I wonder if they might be interested in taking that up again.
Is there a better alternative?
To a tree? What?
Trimming them. So they don't have to be taken out.
Yeah,
No.
I mean,
that or some sort of like other sort of decorative planting that's significant that wouldn't have to be redone every 10 years or, I mean, because we're planting
Probably.
trees only to cut them down. Seems kind of, we're growing our kids.
Can they be trimmed to?
I don't know, because I knew we had complaints, I drive the intersection both ways. Yeah, the one in front of Dumbbells or whatever it's called. That tree blocks the stoplight on the right, but there's one on the left, looks right. All you have to do is look. I mean, you can see them. So I know that we're gonna hear a lot of complaints about taking those trees down.
Yeah.
Because they're pretty. And.
Yeah, it makes our downtown not look like a desolate
Right.
western town. And it's really changed a lot, now the appearance of downtown, I like it.
The,
Roundabouts at every intersection.
oh gee,
Don't
no, don't put it on.
So another alternative, I want to get somebody who knows a lot
Yeah,
more about trees than I do,
right.
I don't know much about trees, but are they getting too big for our infrastructure underneath? Are they gonna cause any other problems with building foundations? We want to really understand that before we would say, let's find an alternative to that,
There-
and how much can they be trimmed? I know Jeremy said that when they were initially installed,
They're
They
in
were
tubes. They're
concrete
in
culverts,
culverts.
but we installed, there was a water line, irrigation line to each one of them.
Yeah,
And we were told to install frost-free in every planter box. We did. But we had to use a back truck to suck all the dirt out
Yeah.
and take out the remaining trees from when they did it the last time. So it was just a blank slate. We put some rock down there for drainage and then they planted, we filled it up with dirt and then the tree planters came in and buried them.
so one alternative would be to replace the stoplights with something that may go overhead so that they can be seen. Something more decorative.
or teach people to turn their head.
Oh,
I'm
Lord.
sorry. I mean, come on, people.
Pay attention where you're driving.
While you're on the phone.
Right.
That's important business to take care of.
Are we getting complaints that they're too big?
I've had a few people saying I can't see the stoplights. I've noticed it a lot driving up and down, and I do, I promise I turn my head and I go slow, but I'm concerned about if there's any kind of liability to the city, because we know about this, they're in our right of way, we own and maintain them, and if they're blocking those stoplights and somebody has an accident, Is that gonna be more risk to us? So if that's the case, is there something that we can do to mitigate that risk?
What was the other complaint? Bird waste.
Bird waste, lots and lots of bird waste, and it seems like that's happening more and more now that the trees have gotten larger, so I don't know if birds like larger trees and smaller trees, or if we just have a change in migration pattern, I don't know for sure.
Well, the first thing that happened was the bank cut the trees out of their park, which is where the birds roosted. So now, when they're migrating, and it happens to be around Fall Fest. But there again, I'm one of those people that think, all right, if there's bird poop in front of your business, wash the sidewalk off. Don't expect somebody else to do everything for you. We're all in this together, so. But I come from a different time. So,
We can eliminate this off the CIP list if you guys don't want to allocate funds toward it, we don't have to do.
well, I
this.
would allocate funds to,
Seems like something needs to be done
yeah. Trim
in
'em.
some way or another, whether it's the lights or trimming or, I mean, like some evergreen, like, perfected junipers. That the birds will stay out of, and they're green all year long, and they grow up and not out.
Yeah,
Look great at Christmas.
They look great at Christmas. Downtown Salina has some junipers in there. Huh?
So they can even be decorated.
They could be decorated at Christmas. Downtown Salina has, some really beautiful junipers in their upgraded areas, and that looks really nice.
mhm.
Some other fruit, so,
You know, some stuff.
Yeah.
I don't. Not as much as others.
Do you guys want to leave money in CIP for that fund?
For something to address it, yeah.
Then we've added 150,000 for mill and overlay of Archer Street 12th to 18th.
That would be an extension. A couple of years ago, we did 6 to 11, and so this will be finishing the remainder of that street.
Fixed base / mill and overlay Doster 7th to 8th.
So this is a street that we didn't really realize was ours to maintain. I thought we doing some research, but this would be a street in front of the parking lot at Acorn Apartments, right south of the middle school. And so it runs, Doster starts at 6th Street, runs past the middle school and goes 7th and 8th, and then curves back around to the east, I believe. So Fuller is also looking at that block between 6th and 7th, knowing that the middle school is going to reopen and wanting to make sure that's in good shape as well. We don't yet have a budget estimate on that yet, but to put some money in here. This street is getting a lot of complaints from folks that live in that area with a lot of potholes, and he thinks that it's going to have some base work done to it as well. So it'll be a fairly expensive fix.
I also wanted to know that after I did this, I realized I had transferred in the state budget form part, closing the gas fund, so transferring that money into the CIP, but I didn't include it on here, so that's $40,035 additionally. That will be here. So I was going to just add it to that last project, or we're not really sure how much the cost will be, or we can discuss what else to do with that $40,000.
How much attention do we give to our like curbs and roads as far as like where would that be in?
Or what now, like the curbs and gutters? So right now it's just the curb and gutter program, so when people want to be a part of that and want to cost share, adjacent property owners, so they would call Fuller, he'd go give an estimate, and then they would participate by paying for the materials, and then we would provide the labor to replace it. That's the existing program that usually comes out of his general fund operating budget.
So if somebody wants their curb replaced, they have to call the city and ask and pay for the material.
Yes.
There's a significant number of deteriorated curbs in this. I noticed.
And I had sidewalks.
And
I know we
sidewalks.
took that sidewalk program away a long time ago, right? There was a sidewalk program.
It's part of this.
Is it part of it?
So if you want a sidewalk or you want your sidewalk redone,
labor's on the city, materials on the
Right.
owner.
How much is in that program?
It's whatever time the public works department can invest in it.
Okay.
So there's no cash outlay on the city's part doing it like this. There's other cities that do it the opposite, where they have a budget for their program and they pay a contractor to go do it. instead. But we've done it this way.
When's the last time that occurred?
Last year, but every year it's just very, it's been very low the last couple of
They're
years.
constantly bringing in apps.
I guess I have a neighbor who's applied and hasn't heard anything back. So is that just because they don't have time?
Last year, that was the case. Kohler's, I think he reported last meeting, he's gotten 2 done so far this year.
Okay.
It's typically done in the fall because during the summertime, they're running at the same time that the hot mixed asphalt plants are running to be able to patch the streets. So when those shut down, then that's usually when they focus on curb and gutter programs. Last year that goes back to the staffing thing. They were running 2 to 3 guys short last year, and so they weren't able to add this special program. But this year they are full, so they should be able to get to them.
Do you know how many they accomplished last year? None. How about the prior year?
You know, Stacy, on that. We just need to take those
Last year that Ron did it was 20. I think he did 3 waves of them.
There were
Did a lot.
17 total one year, I remember, and I don't know if that was 2020 or 2021.
I think it was 2020 because he was here in 21.
Was the school one of the last ones? That was huge.
I still have, I bet we still have 25 on the list.
So they're full for this year. I mean, as far as requests.
I mean, yeah, there's some that go back about
I know
3
last year
years.
they did some of the ones downtown, their city property. The corners down there, they replaced 2 or 3 of them. City curb,
The ones by the pavers that
they
they
don't
fixed.
part of the program, but.
Yeah.
As with the curb, I know they were doing.
Laura, do you have anything to add?
Wait, let's do.
You shouldn't have.
Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me okay?
Yeah.
No? You can?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that we've done 2 more on the curb and gutter, and I'm just trying to get more estimates sent out as we get them done because I don't want to have like a backlog of estimates and people sending money in. So it's kind of like once I get a few done, I'm gonna send out a few more estimates and then get their money, and then we'll continue to do it that way. But I plan on knocking out like at least, I don't know, at least 10 to 12 this year. We're kind of trying to get caught up on what we missed out on last year, not being full staff or whatnot.
Do you have any sidewalks included in that for?
Yes, I think I know of 2 of the applications that are sidewalks, but for the most part this year, it's just been like curbs and gutters.
Thank you. Then Amber, you want to explain your thick black line in the middle of this?
Okay, then, so anything below the line is projects that we've discussed, as being 2025 or later. So just so they're on the radar, most of the. If there's anything you want to move above the line or anything you want to change, we've already put there.
The Broadway to Archer, is that 6th Street you're talking about? For the clip, see clip? Fifth one down.
Amy,
I don't know.
No, that was 11th or.
that was one of the ones we added. Well, maybe fuller than.
Fuller, do you remember? Ended up being below the line. It was a C clip from Broadway to Archer, but it doesn't say which street was gonna be redone.
Club Broadway to Archery. Yeah, that would be like the rest of Sixth Street from where we're doing right now to back towards into downtown, basically, on Highway 9.
Okay, thank you.
Any of the housing, is that for the housing project we're doing now? The housing subdivision infrastructure number 2? For $2 million there. What's that?
Yeah.
So that was where, yeah, we had talked about if we were successful with the first project and wanted to try another one with the RHID, and we'd identified a couple different locations. Those could be done if that was successful. We wanted to do it, then that would be in the future.
Okay.
That isn't actually this part,
No,
is
the one that we're doing right now is above the line that's
Yeah.
listed as St. Joseph subdivision. And housing subdivision, it should be housing
Yeah.
subdivision number 1.
And street ceiling, is that something that's only done every so many years?
Yes.
How often is that?
I don't remember what Ron said. He was trying to get a few on a rotation. I don't know what Fuller has planned yet. Fuller, did you have any street ceiling planned for this next year?
What'd you say? You cut out on my end. It's hard to hear sometimes.
Do you have any street ceiling planned for this next year?
Yes, so I was gonna continue to do on like a 11th to the east of Matthew and Hill, going up that hill, kind of near the elementary, and then hit 18th, East 18th again. And then once all the, I guess it won't be this year, but once the college gets done with their project over there, we're gonna do in front of the hospital as well.
What was the treatment we did on Republican Street? That seems to be holding up pretty well. That was a new kind of,
That was the
Yeah, that was the Onyx Seal Coat. So that's something that I want to get into. I got some estimates for it. I know only one company does it. It's Hall Brothers does it, but there's another thing that we'd like to do ahead of time. It's called mastic, and basically it's like a rubbery sealant type thing for like thick cracks that has aggregate in it.
yeah,
And we want to fill all the big cracks with that and then go over it with that seal coat because it'll keep the road from getting oxidized really bad.
okay. I mean, that just seems like that's
yeah, it's
held up
Mhm.
fairly well.
Are there any changes that you want to see to the CIP list?
The article the school brought out about the gymnasium and kind of wanting to partner with the city. Is that something we need to discuss or put it on for a different time?
We've not had staff has not had any conversations with the school district since the article came out, so I'm not sure the details of their thought process. We did put something down below here, community activity center, and we did put that in at 15 million so that we could keep a project similar to that on our radar. The thought process in our mind with 15 million is number one, cost of construction would go up. We've also talked with Chris a little bit about needing to start to have conversations about long-term for our pool. And so maybe that might be an opportunity to combine a couple of those together as well. So it's on the radar below the line, meaning we wouldn't allocate funds for next year unless there was a different opportunity that arose that we need to discuss with you guys all about.
So out of curiosity, the wayfinding signage, what are we thinking about there? I mean, I'm just curious what we're,
It was popular in communities a couple of years ago. A lot of towns had some different signs that would come up that would say, you know, if you want to go to the fairgrounds, you turn right. If you want to go to the Brown Grand, you turn left. We have the generic brown signs for tourism that the state puts up, but we don't have any pretty signage that's around town that really directs you to where things go. So there was a group of people a few years ago that were excited about that. I know tourism was one of them, and then Pros and Cons had talked about making that one of their major projects. We just have not picked that back up.
That's
since
fine,
that
I just-
time.
So for one reason or another, all these things that are in 2025 is because they're not on the radar just for the following year. Right. But they're things that have been discussed in the past.
Yes. So if they're below the line, that means there's not budget funds available to do them either this year or next year. And so we would look at them and try to prioritize them for 2025 or beyond. Put budget dollars to them. If we move them above the line and wanted to put dollars toward them in fiscal year 2024, then we would need to pick something from above the line to move it below the line.
Are the tennis courts able to be maintained, you think, for another year before we before they become too?
I think so. I don't think the cracks are that bad. And patching most of them.
I mean, non-tennis, non-pickleball players' perspective, they seem all right, but
I mean, the weeds they're pretty tall for a while in the cracks, so I mean, there were enough cracks for that, but I think. There's fewer dead spots there than there are on the other court.
clay still rules, so.
Yeah. I guess that's if if we're looking at that project down the road, that would be good to stick with the clay and not the other.
It's an additional challenge.
You really think
I'm
so?
sorry.
You play, don't you? No, I think you did.
Oh.
Well, never mind.
How do you like to play better than that? Overlay?
Everybody does.
Yeah, it's just
Everybody
there's
does.
the overlay, you get weird dead spots. And I don't know why.
Play on it anymore.
They won't play on the.
It's slick too, and it even just a little bit wet or dew, you fall.
That's what they sold wasn't supposed to have. Since it's perforated or whatever you want to call it, just do more traction. There's less surface area for moisture to stay on.
They have good reviews.
Nothing.
It's new enough not to have bad reviews, right? Like,
It will all look pretty.
It looked pretty, yeah, just lesson learned as we move forward, so.
And that was a collaborative team grant project, so yeah. Anything else you guys want to change on the CIP list?
I think it's pretty fun. When you talk about the lighting, is it just switching to different? Moving probably LED or something like that? Is that just switching out the bulb or switching out the whole units?
Whole lane unit.
And is it still the case, the thing that keeps you from higher caliber tournaments would be the shade? And then probably, is that the shade structures or those?
Complex.
Yeah,
Not necessarily. I don't think that's keeping. Higher tournaments.
okay.
You mentioned seating capacity at one time.
Yeah, and we're kind of juggling around some of the smaller bleachers for the capacity, especially for the Legion State that's gonna be here this week. The concrete is a big one. Dirt and mud, and dust and the gravel.
But as far as like, I know in state, if you're gonna recruit a state tournament, like. For high schools, there's a list of components you need and. Used to be like shade was one of those components. At one point in time, but there had to be a certain amount of seats that were shaded, do we meet that? Or is that not a thing anymore?
I don't know about that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we're putting a lot of investment out there, it'd be good to see. If we can
Yeah.
get it, let's go
What's the
for it.
list? What's the master list to get you going?
Something like that, state, your capacity is gonna be the biggest
Bigger.
number one factor.
Gotcha. Okay.
Now that it is turf on that field, I mean, you're more comparable to some of those other sites, but the capacity and honestly, the ADA access. I know if one individual has trouble with their scooter at times, even though we pack the rock down.
Just, so with the state baseball tournament, do they just play one game at a time then, or would they be playing multiple? I don't know how.
One game on that field. They wouldn't use the K team field.
Okay. So you wouldn't need to have multiple fields to support that, having one solid field would support a state tournament. From a field perspective,
Yeah, I mean, high school state tournament,
yeah,
no, one field, everybody uses just one field.
okay,
If you're talking about, like a 16 to 18-year-old summer tournament, it'd be hard to do it on one field.
okay, but then we
If you're
still have the
talking
other
about
field for
outside
that.
the Tournament.
Not Alex.
I just had a thought looking at it. I'm okay with 2024, but I think we need to be careful that we don't end up spending more on recreational facilities than we do on streets, water, and sewer.
Mhm.
I know people can't see that, and it's hard to justify spending a lot of money on them, and yet they expect it. So I think we have to be careful that we don't end up like the school and their bond issue with people complaining that they aren't thinking about academics, it's all about sports.
Sure.
We don't want to have them thinking the city is the same way, so. Just my thoughts. I think we need to be careful.
We wanna look at water.
Us. Thinking you never ask.
So the white, after the orange sheet. This kind of just shows, the first page just shows, kind of where we are, we're expecting to end the year at $1,022,000. We did do a project in the year with the water line for Runza. We do anticipate buying a sewer camera. I broke those out separately in that 2023 column, and then also not in here will be well rehab number 18 of 80,000 approximately. And so that will change the bottom line too, so I did get that put in there. And then as you can see, if you just we held expenses somewhat constant and looking out for the next few years, there's not a lot of room to do projects, speaking of projects for the water line, or water and sewer. I don't know, I put 150,000 in there next year for a project that we've talked about for a few years, kept below the line. Pretty much for this reason, that we were trying to build money, we haven't done much in there, in the water department for, we did it 2019. Something there and then. The runs up. So, looking forward, if we wanna do any project out of there, it's kind of gonna be a discussion, I think, of water rates again, and if you. Obviously, it's gonna take a lot more discussion right now, or anything, we don't have to decide anything for budget, but. We do have the survey. Municipal or league survey that talked about water rates, and I think if you take out the treatment plant, we are. Below average, so. Discussion, yeah, always fun, but the treatment plant fee can't come off for. For a while. And that'll need to be looked at closer to whether we could take a $2 or something off of that for the life of it and then add. It to other places, cause that is possible, we are maybe able to end it early, but. Whether we can just end a few dollars early, keep the rest, and then maybe maneuver it around, that's something to discuss, but just something to think about. So there's not a lot of room to do projects now that we haven't. Been raising our rates since 2016.
We raised, after 2016, we put on a base fee. Do you remember that? Remember that by chance? It was a $5. No,
No, it was a base, like regardless of usage, it's
Yeah.
like a minimum.
because if you
Yeah.
raise the rates, you kind of shoot yourself in the foot because people.
I think that was the last time we did that. Let's see. That was when. we
I
did
wasn't
that.
in here at 16 though. Yeah, I was, never mind.
That was when we did that,
Was it that long ago?
yeah,
Damn.
I thought it was longer ago, so. I'm gonna say that, like, when we looked at.
And when did the pool go on and off?
5 years ago.
2017-ish, because it was right before I came on.
It went off in 17, or it went on in 17?
It went on in 17
For 3 years.
and then came off.
And when we took it off, we added at the exact same time the $3 of treatment plant, so it was kind of a lot.
One did go off before the next one went on.
But we're operating then within the same budget, it's just you're saying we need to do additional projects when these come off. I guess I don't understand.
Well, I'm saying we don't have it, this is just. Those that you're talking about, like pool and the treatment plant are projects themselves,
Specific.
paid for by themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
And so as far as doing any other projects that come from this regular operating budget
Mhm.
that hasn't. Had anything to help it since 2000, I mean, saying regular dollars, expenses are going up. There's nothing more coming in, because. So, I guess.
And
Need to raise rates then. So we can do
philosophically, this fund is a business fund or an auxiliary fund. Your general fund should not shore up your water fund. Your water fund should be making money and shoring up your general fund, if anything. So if we talked about, we need to do a project, we need to bond it, because we have bonding capacity. That would be backwards from the philosophy of what this is supposed to do.
Yeah, a lot of communities, their water department transfers money to the general fund every year as a transfer. Never been able to do that, so thanks.
So, I mean, I don't know a lot about water, but like, what about, like, water quality wise? Like, when you have an added expense for a softener because it's hard water, like, does anybody in our community not require that?
Nobody required.
Whoa.
Right.
I'm just saying, well, I mean, if you know,
Can we add a citywide?
my question is, I mean, when you raise rates, but you have to also, I think, consider that our quality of water is.
She's saying your quality of water is bad.
I'm trying to nicely put
It's hard.
It makes me have scaly skin.
You would
I'm like,
you would have to have a treatment plant built. And all of the wells that are spread throughout the town, they would have to have transmission lines dug to the plant and then a transmission line back out of the plant. So it would be a multi-million-dollar project to do that here.
So it wouldn't justify the difference in like the water softener and salt, everybody paying extra $50 a month. Still be far away from that. Maybe we'll think of that in the future, like after we get done.
What are your highest priority projects after the treatment plants?
Probably get on some of the problem issues with some of these lines that, you know, have had several breaks. And just go down a block at a time, keep the projects at a minimum, the cost down. Because we have eliminated a lot of those areas for years. We have done projects, you know, the downtown area, 18th Street, 17th Street,
Right.
16th Street over by the car wash. I mean, our main breaks and maintenance there has decreased, I think. So,
Probably illustrating where your other issue areas are.
excuse me.
Well, like, my experience with plumbing, as soon as I shore up one part of it, it shows where the next compromise is.
Yeah.
Which, once I shore that up, it shows me where the next compromise place
Right.
is. So now that those areas are taken care of, the new problem areas are showing themselves.
Right, and it's a non-stop, because our infrastructure is so old. You have to just maintain what you have until you can afford to replace.
So when do we have the conversation about raising rates? Is that now, or it's knowing that it's ahead of us?
No, I mean, it doesn't need to be discussed during budget time, but anytime. The last several times that we've done any sort of rate increase, we've done it at the end of the year and to start a new year. So, you know, that has to be what it is. It's just when we've done it.
Mhm.
Remind me when the sewer, do you know when the sewer plant comes off of it?
Thinking this is the actual. I just looked at that. 2040, I know is the second one. And then 2032, I think. 2032 for the, well, that's when our bond went out. We never set a time for the fee to come off. Based off of whatever we needed to pay off the bond, so really. We can end it whenever it looks like. We can stop whichever amount, whenever it looks like we'll have enough.
And by that time, they'll have more regulations put on it anyway, so we'll have another bond issue on top of it.
Project up there by 19th Street shortstop, should there be something on this, like that?
That was the runs of water line piece of it. It was
No,
all.
you're thinking about the car wash, aren't you? That's
It
all the
kind of all
same.
ran together.
Okay,
Cause the one further north by the car wash and shortstop was a fix. And so we just ran it all together, bid it at the same time as the South Development water line.
okay,
To get them here to do two projects at once, basically.
okay, so it's ready, our part is
We're done.
fairly.
Other than the street, the road part of it, yeah.
Oh, you're still talking about the car
okay,
wash.
Yeah, the road part is not done, it's not ready. Yes, it's a slight extension of 20th Street.
Okay, but the water piece of it.
That'll just be a tap, a small tap. That,
Oh, right there.
yeah. That, we will put that part of it.
Okay, nothing that needs to be budgeted. Okay.
No.
Sorry, I'm like Amy, I don't understand water in the sewer. But if it's just a small tap, it's fine.
Regina, you do bring up a good point. Amber, do we need to note that 20th Street extension on here, or are you just pulling that from reserves as well? You remember, that's something we did not talk about that before we came in here. Let us figure that out before Wednesday and answer that question. With that.
Yeah.
The gas line money.
It's a perfect application.
So just to clarify with the water, in the past, when that has increased, it's just been a dollar amount. Usually, so like there was the $5 one you guys mentioned, and then the $3.
They actually increased, I think there was several years in a row, they tried to, we were so far behind, they did it incrementally every year, and then And then I added the $5 base to get everybody's base pay up. So, yeah, like the last rate increase was, I think, 2016, December of 16.
I'd rather raise our water rates to have more funding for projects, so because it's supposed to be an income generator. It also then puts the cost more on the individual than having to pull that from the general fund, which is then spread across all taxpayers, which, you know, I mean, I know all taxpayers benefit from having water lines, but to me, it's a different way better way to fund those than taking money away from other projects, so that they're important once you fund.
The only people that'll complain about rate increase are the people that use a lot of water.
Then you should, right, I mean,
Hotel.
Where before I was doing it to
Rental
everybody,
properties.
I was getting $5 out of everybody. So instead of just the people that use the water.
But we do it different than some cities. We incrementally, as you use more, the price goes
It's a
down.
little bit less, not
And
a
I've
lot.
told other cities, city clerks that, and they said, what?
Yeah.
And I've looked back, the code book from 1917 was like that, so. We've pretty much always headed that way.
you're looking at
Reward
code books
the
from
users.
1917. I'm just curious with your hobbies, like.
No, it's really like to look at all that.
Charles Johnson bought that at an auction and he brought it in here to show me and I never gave it back.
Probably wondering where it is.
I kind of forgot and I think he just meant to donate it, but whatever. I'm not sure.
Well, now he knows, so.
Yeah.
Come back and get
Thanks,
it.
Charlotte.
For the record, Stacy is our records historian.
I'm still, so the $5, it was just like everybody got charged $5,
Yeah,
whether you used water or not.
On the base.
on the base. So if you minimum, so if you used 1,500 gallons minimum. After my $5 increase, you. Whether or not you use more than 1,500 gallons, you paid $5 more. Every meter got $5 put on it.
But it's not like a separate line item.
Yeah, it was just,
The base chart.
Well, then,
that was guaranteed money, where if you were,
Yeah,
it was guaranteed money, where if you increase rates, you don't know
right,
if you're gonna get that money or not. But we could do something like that again, where it's guaranteed.
I like that a lot, right? I think it's, and if you're gonna do it, it's to maintain everything,
right.
so everyone should pay it.
It'd also be interesting just to see with our current use, if we didn't discount for higher volumes, what would the
Oh, right.
net increase be if a gallon of water costs this much, period? How much more would that be? Because if we looked at a slight rate increase for everyone, but then put that flat rate out for usage, would that be the best of both worlds then? Or we minimize the impact to everyone?
It's not a lot of difference between the usages.
Okay,
I mean, it's
it wouldn't be
what
significant.
is it, 60 cents when you get above 75,000 gallons. I have it on my desk.
Okay, but it would,
But
you know.
yeah, it's not a huge difference,
Okay.
but yeah, it would add up significantly. If you just had a gallon of water costs this much and you just carried it on out to the big users too.
That may be a better way to look at it, because the whole state is looking at ways right now to conserve water, because there are areas of the state that really are having water quantity issues, where we're not right now. But I think if we look at water conservation measures, look at the future, it might be better to look at that base rate than rates if we want people to conserve their usage.
Either here nor there, but on our trip, we drove by a lot of farm ground in Arizona, California at 115 degrees that looked like it had greener corn than what we have. I mean, it was really pretty remarkable the way that we're sustaining farm ground. in certain areas, they're absolutely dead. So I appreciate our conservation efforts, I'm not sure.
We're talking about water later then. Actual rates, yeah.
You're that's triple, what you think, so bad.
You know, now you're gonna have a penalty.
Do you guys want to look at anything else in the budget here? I mean, it was the talking thing, that's the trend line for the fund, but is there anything else you have questions on water sewer fund wise?
No, I want to be able to maintain our infrastructure, or we don't find ourselves in a hole, literally, figuratively.
What else did you have for top difference in every?
That was all, and then we have, you know, whatever you told us to come back with. Well, the health insurance coverage options won't be back by Wednesday, but we have the cap, $650 cap on that, so I'm just going to leave it in the budget the way it is now, and then it varies, suspect. And the resource center, just doing that. Then the COLA, we were going to look at 4% and 2% and come back with numbers on that.
At 20th Street extension. All the other outstanding requests stay the same, at 20th Street to CIP.
So really, as far as those would be my things to discuss for next time. I would like to be here at 3 o'clock.
So yes, you want to meet at 3 o'clock? And then would that be the time to look at wage study stuff, or were you wanting to go over that today? Or did we address that by saying we're putting that 2% toward COLA, and that's how we can hear that?
4% COLA, 2%. So looking at 6%.
Yeah, for those,
For the,
those areas, and then come back and look at those numbers on Wednesday, so we'll discuss
Yeah.
that Wednesday then. So do you want to meet at 3, and then if we're done early, go home, we're back to work, and then come back for the meeting at 5:30? We can get this done in an hour, go at 4 instead. Stacy, did you advertise for 3 already on Wednesday? Stacy advertised for 3 already on Wednesday.
It didn't get in today, so I would have time to change that tomorrow.
I could benefit from more time in my office, but if 3 o'clock is when everybody else needs to meet, we need to be, I don't,
4 would be ideal if we want.
yeah,
I think we could.
4 o'clock.
5 would be best, but
We can talk really fast.
4 would,
Well, technically, we would still have till 5:30, right? I mean,
Yes.
because we have a meeting at 5:30 anyway, so.
4 should
Four's
do
good.
it.
4 good. That work for you, Stacy, then?
Touch the pool vehicles.
Closer. That's good, please.
So, okay, so then with that, do we, a budget item or somewhere,
We need better cameras.
better cameras and more of them? So I don't know if that's
Talked
just,
about that before, and the Wi-Fi. Right, correct me if I'm wrong, but something about the Wi-Fi and cameras in the park area is not.
Yeah, but the Wi-Fi is at the pool.
Okay.
So the Wi-Fi wasn't an option for like the bathrooms cameras. We have a separate system, a DVR system there. So I mean, Wi-Fi is more of an option at the pool, but they do turn it off. For the year 2. Winter. Since we've got most of our sidewalk lights are already switched to LED, once we finish switching them to LED, we can either leave them on longer or all night. For one, which will help. But yeah, I think our camera systems.
yeah, what we need to do, invest in that. Yeah, once we get the LEDs, even then, leaving those public spaces lit.
Cameras aren't,
adding
I
cameras.
think
Well,
the
the third
ones
ones
we
are.
have were, other residential type ones, like adding price to it.
The cameras we have in place were done as part of the tennis court projects and we were. Other team members left the use of those, so we had to add power and add internet connectivity.
But that's already
That's
there now.
established.
So just adding cameras is, should be a lesser expense and they're becoming more and more common.
Right.
As well.
So frustrating. Stupid too.
Know what
Yeah.
the total expense was of that?
Fairgrounds got broke into today.
Hmm?
Fairgrounds got broke into last night, running some 4-Hers project.
We had American flag cut down at State Park today too.
What happened?
Was, what, today was yesterday or last night or whatever,
Well, the American flag at City Park got cut.
in the corner of 11th and probably, yes, Washington. The American flag on the light pole, or on the light pole there in the corner. They cut the rope, sliced it.
Who stole the flag?
The sheriff and I talked today, we believe it's the same group, 2 places.
And that's not the price, I'm still getting quotes back in, I just got the glass one today, it's about $1,000. But after we cleaned up the glass, apparently the seals are not made anymore, those type of seals, and we didn't know that, and they've been tossed. So, we're gonna have to do something different. Maybe frame in the first 3 feet or something like that, and then put over the full glass windows in, maybe, I don't know yet. I don't know what our options are with full 4x8 sheets of glass right now. The fit what we have.
We have cameras throughout the city. Correct?
We have four upper tennis courts, one on the basketball court. And then we have a separate system on the south bathrooms.
Has that been helpful in deterring vandalism there?
I mean, we had some small stuff. I don't know if that's what's.
I mean, it'd be good to be able to catch folks after the fact, but it's just. Really be just great if people could be responsible citizens and not mess stuff up, but. I mean, I don't know how much deterrence we have other than how to be well lit. Better cameras to go after that.
I think it would be nice to have some more by the pool and the parking lots, I think that would help us out a lot too, but. You can actually see them on video, but they're so small, can't. We tried to blow it up, but it's just,
And there's a lot of light there at night with those 3 pools that are staying on all night. And the pool, so
it's hard really to identify either, but.
the light.
I mean, we have video, but not all of you, I guess.
It's from a distance.
On the inside of. Lines. Or inside. Inside the glass window of your place. That they can't tamper with the cameras before they're.
Usually pretty hard to reach anyway.
We did a sweep of the neighborhood on any ringing doorbells or anything, and that area just doesn't have a lot of contact with the school. They don't have any on the VOAG building that shine that way, so, I mean, we've reached out. We do have some pretty good leads right now, hopefully we'll shore those up the next week or so.
I know, but I know even on my doorbell cam and my driveway camera. It's hard for me to pick up stuff at the park, just being that much farther across, and you can see that there's somebody moving around and they're pretty new, pretty decent cameras, but you get that zoomed out. 100 yards.
And a lot of people turn them down because they just don't want them going off every time someone walks past the sidewalk or on the road.
Right.
But it's mostly deer.
I would
Yeah.
entertain a motion to adjourn to Wednesday evening's budget meeting at 4 p.m.
So, I would make the motion.
It's been moved by Commissioner Wentz and second by Commissioner Belvin to adjourn the meeting to Wednesday afternoon budget meeting at 4 p.m. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye, all opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone.